You could argue and say the Miami Dolphins season was over before it even began. It started off in training camp when Ryan Tannehill had a season-ending injury in training camp, torn ACL, and they signed Jay Cutler, who was supposed to be calling games with Fox Sports. He signed a one-year deal with the Dolphins. Now, with Ryan Tannehill coming back next season, I've heard speculation on saying that Josh Allen was in talks with the Dolphins. He was meeting with them, but I'm not sold on the Dolphins drafting a QB. I'm not sold on that whatsoever. In fact, if you can see on the draft board behind me, they have pick number 11. And here's what I have their idea being. I know there's more that they can target than offensive line or defensive end. Like, I will add in two more things. A cornerback, if they can't sign a cornerback in free agency. I feel like their cornerback might become from free agency, or a wide receiver. And the reason why I'm saying they might need a wide receiver is because we don't know if Jarvis Landry is going to be a Dolphin next year. I am leaning towards that he is not going to be a Dolphin next year. I'm leaning that Jarvis Landry will probably be somewhere. Maybe he'll be in Chicago. Maybe Atlanta. That could be a pretty solid choice. Or he can go somewhere within that division. Like maybe he could go somewhere like maybe in Buffalo or the Jets or even the Patriots. I could see Jarvis Landry going to about 8 different teams. I do not see him being a Dolphin next season. So that's why I'm adding wide receiver to that list of the draft board. But let's talk about what the main focus is for this, and that's offensive line or defensive end. Offensive lineman. Connor Williams might still be there at number 11. Mike McGlinchey should definitely be there at number 11. As far as defensive line goes, Arden Key, there's a great chance he'll still be there at number 11, especially if Tampa Bay passes up on Arden Key at pick number 7, and if the Colts pass on Bradley Chubb as well at number 3. So there's a great possibility that Arden Key might still be there. But with cornerback, Denzel Ward of Ohio State, that's who the Dolphins might be keeping their eye out on. Because I feel like if they don't get the defensive end, if Bradley Chubb and Arden Key are both taken by pick number 11, I just think the Dolphins might settle on an offensive lineman, probably Mike McGlinchey, or maybe even Quentin Nelson out of either of the 2 Notre Dame offensive linemen. Connor Williams also there. Depending on if any offensive linemen improve their draft stock at the combine. But let's add in the wide receiver position. The one that might be interesting, depending on how the free agency season goes, leading up to the draft. Now, Jarvis Landry is a free agent. And I already said that I don't see Jarvis Landry being a Dolphin next season. So, who could the Dolphins target at pick number 11 as well? They could target somebody like Courtland Sutton, the wide receiver of SMU. I could see Courtland Sutton, even though a lot of people are saying that the wide receiver class is not as deep as it is in years past. But if you look at wide receivers that are in this draft class, you got Calvin Ridley out of Alabama, Courtland Sutton out of SMU, James Washington out of Oklahoma State, Christian Kirk out of Texas A&M. Those are the 4 best wide receivers in the draft class, in my opinion. So maybe the Dolphins might get their hands on one of those wide receivers. In fact, if they do go with the defensive end or offensive lineman, don't be surprised if the Dolphins go wide receiver with their next pick in the draft. I do think the Dolphins will go wide receiver at some point in this NFL draft. That's one of my predictions throughout this draft. In fact, I'm thinking about doing a thing where I write down a prediction maybe for each team, or maybe like 20 predictions for the NFL draft weekend. That's something I'm thinking about. Comment below if you'd like to see that. But what ultimately comes down to this pick for me, as much as the Dolphins need offensive line, I think they are going to go with the defensive end, if he's still available, of course. Arden Key, defensive end of LSU. And the reason why I'm thinking they're going to go Arden Key, a defensive end, If you look at the Dolphins' defensive line, Cameron Wake getting up there in age, and Ndamukong Suh getting up there in age. Both of them are getting up there in age. The Dolphins need some youth to compete with New England and to compete with a team like Buffalo, who made a spark this year, making the playoffs for the first time in this millennium. So that's the Dolphins recap. Their draft board target should be offensive lineman, defensive end, but they'll go with Denzel Ward at number 11 if he's still there, and they'll go wide receiver later on in the draft, probably in the second or third round. In particular, maybe the second. Maybe they'll target Christian Kirk, or they'll probably target James Washington if they're still available in the second round.